Hello, everybody. So, welcome to episode 27 of Teh Tarik with Walid. And I realized I need a good tagline, right? Like all uh, online personalities, I hesitate to use the other word, as all online personalities do, especially if you have somewhat of a talk show. So, I think my tagline shall be "Good day, everyone," since it's all about the tea. So today we'll be having Min Cheong from SDP, Singapore Democratic Party. She's the third person from SDP that I would have had on by the end of this episode on this series. The first two were the big two, Professor Tambaya and then Dr. Chee himself. But Min also is a prominent. She's not as prominent as people as the others, but I think she's quite impressive. From whatever I know of her, from whatever I've read and heard of her, and I've listened to her stuff. She has been on a few podcasts, I think, including New Narratives podcast. She's quite impressive. So I look forward to having this conversation today. So she was a candidate in the 2020 general election in Holland Bukit Timah GRC. So I will send her, and please, if you have any questions for her, please feel free to type them. How are you, Min?
I'm good. I'm good. Instead of tea, I have coffee with me. But I think like in the spirit of being an opposition member.
Okay, so I wanted to. Okay, let's start because I think, as I was saying, um, probably a lot of people do not really know you. So maybe you want to introduce yourself just a little bit before I get to specific questions.
Okay. So my name is Min. As you know, I was a candidate in the 2020 GE. I am also a marketing and communication strategist. I also have my own business to run with my fiance. And I am a Krav Maga enthusiast.
You are a what enthusiast?
A Krav Maga enthusiast. So Krav Maga is basically a fighting system.
The Israeli
Yeah.
martial art, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So basically, you can kick a lot of people's asses.
I try.
Okay. So do you go often or do you?
I used to go about 3 or 4 times a week, but ever since COVID, that's been a bit difficult. Yeah. So I do what I can at home. Punch the wall. Whatever it is.
Wow, for real? Or
Yeah, maybe not.
okay, okay, right. All right. So okay. So thanks for that. So yeah, I think I read that about you. I'm not sure where it was. Was it in the Youthopia article? But yeah, I did know that you are quite a decent fighter. So let's get to it, right? So probably the first question I have for you is why the SDP, right? And I think I don't know for sure, but you know Elvin Ong, assistant professor from NUS.
Yes, yes, he was my classmate in uni.
He did tell me that in his session. So I assume that we are around the same age because he's the same age as me. So we are
Right.
so we are all in the late 20s, plus minus, okay, plus minus. So
Happy to take that.
as we were growing up, SDP for sure was the most controversial party, right? I mean, the SDP today is not the SDP of the 2000s, right? Or at least that's not the impression, at least that people have. It may still be the same party, but that wasn't the impression, right? SDP was by far the most controversial party. So why SDP?
So I think firstly, when I as a younger person, 10 years ago in 2011, when I first started to get a little bit more interested in politics, and I was doing my research on the various parties and organizations that existed. I found that the SDP at that time was the only opposition political party that had comprehensive policies or policy papers, and I thought that that was an affirmative start. It was something that outlined the position of the party in a way that was clearer, So that was something to work with. And a lot of the policies really resonated with me because there was a lot of underlying tones of compassion, which I think was really important to me at that time. So that's why I joined the SDP.
How old were you
Um,
roughly around that? This was when you were an undergrad or
yeah,
earlier?
I think I was in poly at that time. Yeah.
Wow. So when you were in poly, you were going through people's manifestos and policy papers.
Yeah, and I credit that to my background in debate because in poly it was when I started to get involved in varsity debating, and that of course sparked my interest in political science, in foreign affairs, in just politics in general, but and also other social issues.
Right.
And I think that was the foundation for an interest in what was going on locally as well.
All right. All right. So, the controversial nature of the SDP didn't
Mm.
scare you or didn't turn you off?
No, actually, and I think the SDP has that reputation for two main reasons. I think one, it's because of media portrayal. So we cannot discount the role the media has in framing certain parties or certain
Sure.
figures or
Sure.
issues.
Yeah.
But I do want to say that I think that they've been significantly more fair in the previous election, the most recent one. And I think that does show a maturation, of the journalists, and just and a better understanding of helps with a better understanding of the political environment. So I think that's something we can give the media credit for in recent times. But the second one is also because SDP has always been a party of very strong principle. And when you stick to your guns the way the SDP always has, and when your actions reflect that, and your actions push the boundaries a little bit more, you're bound to ruffle some feathers.
Right.
But I'm quite happy to stand with people who have that kind of courage and conviction. And we won't always get it right, but we'll always adjust. And I really feel like we need to stand for something. Not just oppose for the sake of it, but stand for something. Because if you don't stand for something, you're going to be lost. You're going to fall for anything that comes your way.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. That was rather inspirational. So sorry. Just now I think my mic wasn't on, so I was a bit distant. But now it's much better, I think. Okay. So Min, let's get to the elections. So on one hand, as a first timer, I'm sure you were very proud of the performance you put in. I mean, you got about slightly under 34%, right, of the votes. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the other hand, considering that SDP is a significant party, and considering that the national average for the opposition was 39-ish%, close to 40%, do you consider the performance a failure?
No, and I can't speak for the others, but of course, as a first-time candidate, I was learning on the go. So a lot of the experiences that I went through were very new to me. So I didn't have a personal benchmark. But what I felt was that we prepared the best we could in the lead up to the GE, and we gave our performance our all. But I think also every GE is surrounded by its unique circumstances, right? And the previous one, it was COVID. And so, national average aside, we did see that, because we weren't able to, hold physical rallies and do things that would be quite, normal under, regular circumstances. There was a little bit of I would say, an asymmetry, I think, in being able to reach people because, the machinery of the establishment is much more complex and much more established. And for us, SDP was, I think, we were quite fortunate because we've always placed quite a strong emphasis on our digital and social media outreach efforts. Right. So we were able to build on that during the election. We had our studio recordings, and we were able to push out messages and speeches to a lot more people than we would have otherwise. But I think we did well, in light of those circumstances. And I think going back to the HPT results, I think we took the opportunity to really kind of unpack the feedback that we got, and adjust, moving forward after the elections, and I think that was really important
What were
because
some of this feedback that and the judgments
right.
that you made? Yeah.
I think we needed to be a bit more present in certain areas that we might have been a little bit too focused on certain
Social media.
geographical constituency, and also certain issues as well. And because HPT is such a it's a huge constituency,
Yeah.
and because of that, it's very unique as well because the makeup of the constituency, the demographics, the psychographics are I would say broader than in some other constituencies.
Okay.
You have different economic groups, and quite a gap between the most wealthy and those that are not so a little bit more disadvantaged, and the strategies would have to be adjusted accordingly. So moving forward, we took all that into consideration, and we're now also planning our outreach efforts in accordance to that understanding the insights we gleaned.
I guess the question for as in based on what you just said, right? So yeah, maybe I'm thinking about it. Probably if you were to have a Gini coefficient of the different constituencies, maybe in Holland Bukit Timah it would be one of the highest, probably. Right? I
Probably, I
don't,
think,
probably
yeah.
right. Yeah, I mean I don't know for
I
sure,
think
but I
so.
suspect. And if that's the case, what would SDP's pitch, or how would it be different? Since you said you need to calibrate or you need to adjust for the different income groups, maybe. I mean that's just one cleavage, right? So how would it be different if you're moving forward? As in, for me, the PAP has an easier message, right? Whether it's for the higher income, for the lower income, stability, proven track record, blah blah blah. I mean, that's the easier message. But how would an opposition party like SDP appeal to both sets of constituents?
I think it would be adopting a broader approach, meaning we would have to, look at programs that would help, the economically disadvantaged. We would also have to, really analyze what it is that drives people that are, a bit wealthier or in a different economic class, because there are a lot of people in who are wealthier who don't necessarily look at bread and butter issues, but they are looking at ideological issues. And if at all they vote for opposition, it's because it's based on principle, and of democracy, of equitability, and all that. So that is what drives them. It's more of a principle approach because they don't really need so much to take care of like the bread and butter issues, but they want to see development of a nation in other aspects. Yeah, so I think we need to, at least these are the two broad categories. There are many different subcategories as well. But understanding the constituency this way has been quite helpful.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. So, I guess especially for the SDP, as in I'm just thinking of this, right? Maybe in Holland Bukit Timah, SDP has a particularly unique conundrum, right? What is the pitch to the higher income? Hey, we are gonna take a lot of your money to fund to fund our more welfareist programs. So how would you that I can imagine that wouldn't be an easy sell. And not that I disagree with you. I am more ideologically inclined towards that. But I'm just thinking that just practically or politically, it's quite a difficult sell, right?
Yeah, it's difficult, and I think it's because of the impression people have of those that are in wealthier, that they don't necessarily want anyone to come to take away from what they have. But I think the right way to sell this message would be, it's about being a rising tide. Just lifting up the people around you when you have the means and it doesn't hurt you too much to give a little bit. Having everyone be uplifted is much better for not just the people that you're helping, but for you as well. Because when a country gets to that point, there's more stability. There are fewer social issues, and then you don't have to divert, your resources to solving problems because there's a level of, equality that's already there. Yeah.
So in the short run, the higher taxes may hurt you, but in the long run, it benefits both the lower income and the higher income as well. That would be the pitch.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it doesn't necessarily have to be about taxes as well, like however we can help in whatever way
Yeah,
that,
sure. Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. So there is a question by Iggy Pereira.
Mm.
Iggy asked, can you share insights on the thinking behind where each candidate stood? So I
Mhm.
assume that it's a party decision and or you don't go. Do you get to go to Dr. Chee? Dr. Chee, I want to stand in Holland Bukit Timah, or how does it work?
Um, I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Obviously, I think that, over time you have expressed certain views. But of course, it's ultimately the party decision. For GE 2020, I don't know if I can speak for everyone, but I think for me, it was because I've grown up in Holland Bukit Timah.
Oh,
I
so
spent
you're a
my whole
daughter
life
of
here.
Holland Bukit Timah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I went to school here. I went to MGS, and then I went to Ngee Poly, and then I lived here pretty much all my life. So I know the constituency really well. And I think it was basically just looking at each candidate's profile. But having said that, I think when we have an approach that's not just about municipal issues, but that also encompasses national issues and our position on that, I think it makes it easier for us to serve wherever we wherever we eventually end up. I think the previous time people were a little bit surprised about Dr. Paul being moved to Bukit Panjang. Going back to your previous question, I think the voters in HPP were a little bit taken aback by that,
Right.
but I mean, he did amazingly well in Bukit
Yeah.
Panjang, right? And I think
Yeah.
it was the correct decision, ultimately.
Right. So if he was in Holland Bukit Timah, you guys would have done better.
I don't know, hard to say, but I mean, he was a very, very well-liked person.
Right.
He is, right?
Yeah, he is.
And Holland Bukit voters took to him really well. And,
Right.
he became a familiar fixture in our team, in the lead up to the GE. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know him, and I don't really know him personally, but he came over to my place for an episode, and yeah, instantly,
Right.
I mean, I can see why people like him. I mean,
Yeah.
he has such an affable personality. Yeah. All right. So
Yeah.
now that you've mentioned Prof. Tambaya, and I mean, just now I talked about Dr. Chee, right? So
Mhm.
there is a school of thought, and before GE 2020, I was in this school of thought as well. Now I'm a bit agnostic. I thought that Dr. Chee's time as a politician was up, or at least as a
Mm,
candidate was up.
mm.
He could be in the background or something, but I think he has earned another shot at least, in my opinion, with his performance in
Mm.
GE 2020. So, what do you think? Where do you stand on it? I mean, do you think? I mean, obviously, I mean the fact that you are in SDP, obviously you're supportive of Dr. Chee to a large extent, right? But do you think probably SDP would be better if it was led by or electorally it could do better if it was led by Prof. Tambaya?
Um, I think the way we approach our party position is whichever whichever person is the right individual to lead at that time. For the good of the party, I think that's what we'll do. I really can't speak for the leadership. But if you're asking, is Dr. Chee kind of still the relevant person, in not just not our party but politics as well? I would say, Dr. Chee represents the courage and conviction that I spoke of before. And, I think courage and conviction will always be relevant and important, and no matter what you believe in or you would like to fight for, you need to be strong and you need to be brave. And I think Dr. Chee is pretty much an embodiment of that. You may not agree with him on whatever issues, but you cannot deny that he has courage and conviction. So I think, in that way, he will always be relevant, and be it to us or, to even to the other side as someone that and the other side would look upon as a force to be
Right.
reckoned. But I think more than that, he's also shown that over the years he's been able to, adapt to the social political climate of the day, and adjust his tactics and adjust his strategies to reach out to more people. So I think he's been able to sort of, navigate that really well. It takes someone who's quite shrewd, to be able to pull that off.
Right. So I definitely agree with you on a couple of points, right? So one, for sure, you can like him, you can dislike him, but I think you cannot really say that he doesn't have conviction and he doesn't have courage, right? I think for sure, I think that part everyone has to give it to him, right? He's fighting for what he believes in. Whether you believe in whatever he believes is a separate matter, right? So, and I agree with you. The second part is he is definitely more than relevant. In fact, even though he has never been elected, I think he will go down as being more relevant than many elected members of parliament, right? However, if I could push you a little on what you said it's not for you to speak on the party leadership, but it is, right? Because SDP, you are a candidate in SDP, you are a prominent member of SDP, right? You can have thoughts on the leadership and who you would prefer, right? Yeah.
I remember you pushing Dr. Chee on us, a few questions last time as well. The thing with the SDP is that, and this is something that I've said in other interviews as well, is that we're actually, it feels like a big family. There's not a lot of hierarchy. Even though there is the CEC and there is, organizational, hierarchy in that sense, but the leadership listens to everybody, and you don't feel like you don't feel like you can't have your say. But and it doesn't have to be in a really super formal way. So in that sense, yeah, you're right. Although I would still maintain I can't speak for the leadership, we have all we do have space and we do have the access to talk to them and to share our views, and they're always really, really accommodating and not just patronizing. They're truly accommodating. They truly take into consideration what we have to say, as not just as candidates, but just as members as well.
Okay.
And I'm also part of the Young Democrats.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of exchange actually between the Young Democrats and the party leadership over what issues are important, what issues we want to fund or push. So there's that, and so I mean, in a nutshell, there is definite communication and there is a respect for every member's views.
Okay. So it doesn't have, you don't have to table something. You can just WhatsApp Dr. Chee and he would respond.
He's not on WhatsApp.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, really? Okay. So he uses Signal or something? Or
No. No, just like,
okay. So that's how he stays above the radar. Okay. So
but I guess you can always, get in, grab coffee with him at Orange and Tea or something.
I did go. I mean, so I went because he came on my show, so I thought I should return the favor, right, in some way. So I did go there. I did manage to go him and to see him, and it was quite. I mean, I looked at what he was doing and I felt tired. Like he was going to every table. Yeah, I don't know how long he can last if if he's doing that. I think somebody needs to tell him to slow down. And you don't have to talk to every customer. Yeah. It was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so maybe let's shift gears a little, right? And because you also are part of the Young Democrats and you are one of the younger candidates, and I would say, I don't know whether you agree with me, probably Miss Raisa Khan is the first woke parliamentarian we've had in our history, right?
Right.
And of course, right, and because she grows up in that environment, and that's the language she speaks. I don't know whether she agrees with me, but I would classify her as a woke parliamentarian. So do you consider yourself to be a woke person?
Okay. So I think, I think this is where definition is important. So I would say, if by woke, the ideology is, the movement which is often associated with social justice and its warriors. Then I'm not sure I can say yes to that, and I'll tell you why.
Sure.
Because I make a distinction between being woke and being enlightened. So because I feel like being enlightened is about, being aware, being open-minded, being compassionate and willing to engage and willing to expose yourself to different points of views in a way that is a way that embraces humility. And there's a willingness in that to discuss and to engage in debate. But I think wokeness as how it has, evolved. And this is my own personal definition. So I'm not saying that people who identify as woke are,
Sure.
As such.
Sure.
But, it's about distinction. So I think wokeness, as sometimes it has evolved into, is a lot about virtue signaling. It's a lot about calling out behavior that doesn't agree with your values, that doesn't align to what you believe in. But in a way that's almost accusatory. And in a way that discourages real connection over, like fostering an understanding of issues, because we're so quick as a society to point out what's wrong and accuse someone of being something is before we really understand not just the issue, but what that position or what that community's position is on something. And and I think if we jump to conclusions, we actually put up barriers between ourselves and other people with other ideas or positions. And for me, it's really about what is the best way to foster healthy discussion in society or healthy debate in a way that acknowledges that while you don't have all the answers, neither do I, and we're here to learn from each other, and we can agree to disagree in the end, but it's not about being it's not about being inflammatory. It's not about, painting out a picture of us versus the other. And I think that can become quite dangerous because when you jump into that mode or that mentality, there's hardly any room for understanding. And if we're not willing to talk about difficult issues or to call a spade, sometimes we're not going to solve problems. It's just going to be we're right, you're wrong, or they're right, this other group is wrong, and it creates a lot more division, I think, in society than it could or it should.
I must say I didn't expect that answer at all from you. I think it is not easy at all for somebody to say whatever you just said, as in somebody who's running in elections, especially if you are in the SDP, that is generally considered the most left party, right? And in many ways, SDP was woke before wokeness was a thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. You get what I'm saying?
But also before woke, became all that it is now.
Right, exactly. So it depends on what we are, how we are defining woke, right? So for you, your discomfort with wokeness or a version of it at least is the fact that there is no room for growth that is accorded to people, or
I think it's before we label something or someone as a certain whatever, something is, I think we need to really have a discussion, a constructive discussion that puts both parties on equal ground. And that's how you get people to learn, right? And that's how you learn yourself. I think a lot of advocates of wokeness don't necessarily really see things from that distinction of you can be enlightened about something and there's a different way to approach issues that way, then identify with the brand of wokeness that is so much more prevalent in the media now or in society.
Right.
And I am very comfortable with, figureheads or platforms that are very, very accusatory or very inflammatory or very combative with how they approach certain issues. Because what is your aim really? Is your aim to look good, to move with the trend, or are you really trying to foster understanding in society?
Right.
And I think that is something that, and there's another thing as well. Like we all kind of gravitate to certain issues because we believe in them, but there are also people that append themselves to issues because it's what I call personality by association. It's like I want to be known for this issue,
Right.
or I want to be seen a certain way, and so I
Right.
champion an issue. But to what end? Is it for personal gain, or is it really to help people come closer together and not create division?
Right. And it could also be both, right? It could be both, right? It could be somebody starting off genuinely believing in a particular cause, but the nature of social media, and anybody who says the number of likes and views do not get to that person or does not get to that person is lying, right? Or you're not
Yeah,
human, right, to not be affected by this. I guess
yeah,
some level of self-awareness or a lot of self-awareness is needed to overcome that. So I really like what you said about virtue signaling, right? But then how do you differentiate? How do you differentiate for you personally when you look at a page, right? Is that person or page virtue signaling, or is that person really championing a particular cause he or she believes in?
I think one way you can tell, although it's not foolproof, is whether they're inviting discussion or whether they're
Okay.
just blocking and banning,
Right.
whether they're engaging with people who have different views in a way that is constructive, or whether they're just shutting them down with one-liners. I'm trying to be
Right.
smart,
Right.
and that's one way you can tell.
Right.
And also, but there will be people or platforms that are very, very, very passionate about what they believe in, and let's not take away from them as well.
Sure.
But I think it's really about looking at whether something is self-serving or whether it's really for society at large.
Right. I think that's a good barometer, I think. Yeah, and I do worry about people being so quick to want to cancel other people. I do think sometimes people exaggerate the effects of cancel culture, but I do think some of it is real as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure if you want to start canceling everybody, right, someone, right, you can cancel literally any. I'm sure both of us,
Yeah.
right, we have said some stupid things in the past. Like I'm sure I said some stupid thing last week, right? So if you're going to be cancelled for every single thing that we say, so I do worry about that as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I mean, I just expected you to say, "Oh yes, I am very woke," and but thank you. I appreciate that. So I wanted to ask you this because I do not have a lot of female politicians on. So I do have a lot of I increasingly I have a lot of female guests on, but they are not party politicians usually. So I had Sarah on, Anthea on,
Yeah.
and Megan on, and Bertha Hanson on, but and Angie as well, but they are not party politicians. So do you see that there is a difference between yourself and the male candidates? Do you feel disadvantaged? Because the nature of the nature of sexism is that sometimes it's very hard to tell, right? Because some cases are clear cut, some cases are not clear cut as well, and sometimes a man going through the same or looking at the same experience would not know that it's sexism, right? So do you feel that there is a difference?
I always struggle with this question because as a female candidate, that's one of the first few questions that I normally get. But if I were to be really honest, not, and I always am, I try to be, but not really. I don't feel disadvantaged. Maybe mainly because I don't see myself primarily as a female candidate. Although I'm very aware that that is obviously the most distinctive characteristic, right? When you first look at the slate of candidates. I think actually there's a tacit advantage in the
Oh,
fact that female candidates they're more noticeable in the sea of their male counterparts. But at the same time, I do also feel that we tend to deal with issues that our male colleagues don't really have to face as much, which is an annoying fixation on how you look. Whether it's your weight or your hair or whatever it is, that you put in your face, and that can be quite. It doesn't really bother me, but seeing it from an objective perspective, it is a little bit irritating, because what we wear, our weight, our appearance, those are not policy matters, right?
right.
But we get a lot of that, whereas our male counterparts don't as much. So
Okay.
it's
Who do
kind of like a
you get that from? Is it as in, or who do you feel you get that from? From
Mhm.
the media or from the voters or
I think mostly actually from certain Facebook or certain Facebook
online
pages. I think.
pages? Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I've seen some really unsavory comments, about myself and about other female candidates. Yeah, so it genuinely doesn't really bother me. Most of the time, I laugh. I do get comments from my friends saying, "I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. It's okay. I don't deal with it." Yeah.
Right. 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 But
Mm.
okay. So that other than that, do you see any other difference? No, that's the only one for you.
I think that would be the most common distinction between what we face as female
Right.
candidates and what our male counterparts do or don't. But other than that, not really, because I think, as long as you put yourself forward in a way that is sensible, in a way that's reasonable, you're going to be more than your gender.
Okay. Oh, so that's really nice to hear. So, do you feel there's a difference in expectations for female candidates because you are expected to raise female issues fairly or unfairly, right? Women's issues. You are expected
Mm.
to raise them unfairly because I suppose your male colleagues are not required to raise male issues, but fairly
Mm.
because I guess you would know what, or to some extent you would know better than what your male colleagues
Mm.
know about what women's issues are.
Mm. I mean, I think, like you said, it's both fair and unfair. And I think that if a female candidate really has a platform that they want to run on, and that a set of issues that they're really passionate about, that happens to not really be female slanted or oriented, I don't think she should be punished for pushing that platform and not something that's overtly a women's issue. And I think men can equally take on women's issues as
Right,
well. And whether they do or not, is also how much they feel for the issue. So I
right.
think, even across the aisle, um, uh, Louis Ng has been quite vocal about certain.
I was
Right.
gonna say he was at the tip of my tongue. I swear I was gonna mention him championing
Yeah,
IVF and so on. So yeah.
yeah, yeah.
He's been at the forefront of it. Yeah, more
Mm,
so than many
mm,
female politicians as well, right? But I guess
yeah.
even if female politicians don't bring up women's issues, right, I don't think we can hold it against them, right? Because they were not
Mm,
elected on the basis of them being female, right?
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
yeah. Unless there's a difference between female candidates and minority candidates who are elected in GRCs, right? Because minority
Mm,
candidates who are elected in GRCs, you are partly there because of your race, so you have no choice, right? So you have to,
yeah.
yeah. But female candidates are not, right? There is no quota for
Mm,
females, so I don't think they are obliged to raise female issues, yeah,
yeah.
or women's issues, yeah. Thanks for that. I think that was quite illuminating. So, what is your personal platform, right? Which obviously your ideologies are in line with SDP's overall ideologies,
Mm,
right? Oh, by the way,
mm.
maybe there are a couple of questions here that we
Ah,
can ask
okay.
we can answer first. So the first is, what you are saying sounds just as applicable if you were to stand for the ruling party. So what is the difference between SDP and TAP? I think that's a pretty easy one to answer. Or
Yeah. I think we all choose our affiliations based on party principle. Um, So, and I think the question points to the fact that we should all be working together. It's not just about opposing. It's not just about, like the incumbent pushing back on opposition. There are many issues that are central or important to both sides, right? And I think we should be working together wherever we can. But in terms of why SDP and why not PAP, I think it really is about which party's values you most identify with. And it's from values that you craft your action. So an outcome can be born of different philosophies, right? But which philosophy is the one that you feel most comfortable with, I think is why people choose different parties. There's no right or wrong.
Okay, so I never thought, if you ask the 15-year-old me, I never thought I would see the day where an SDP candidate says that we must work with the ruling party where we can. So yeah, we must work together. No, I mean I'm not complaining. I'm just saying I never thought I would hear that. So the other one is this question. I would have to take issue with this question. Party politics aside, what do you believe are the core problems with Singapore? Well, there is no party politics aside. The problems and solutions are always related to politics, right? So I think that question is already flawed in the first place. But maybe we rephrase the question. What do you think are the core problems with Singapore, right? And maybe it goes to the question that I wanted to ask as well. If there was one policy that you would change, right? So obviously this would be about the one problem that you would solve. So what would it be?
Yeah, so I'll address what I maybe feel is the most pressing problem we face now. I think it is our idea of what success is, and the kind of stress that engenders. And I think it's born from the fact that our metrics of what is a successful life, or metrics of what is good to do, is based on this pursuit of economic aggrandization, the pursuit of financial success, and that creates a lot of pressure for people to make more money, spend more time at work, and that really affects not just the individuals, but their families and the people around them as well, and the health of society as well. And it's really sad to have to mention this, but we've seen a significant rise in suicides or suicide attempts, or general. There's a malaise in society, and that's really troubling, because it speaks of the rot in society. It speaks of the fact that there's something really wrong, and people are, unhappy and struggling. And I think that's quite dangerous. So before in the lead up to the G, during the G as well, I ran on the platform of workforce wellness, tackling the issues of socioeconomic sustainability, job creation, organizational culture, personal well-being, because I think all of these things are linked together. And I'm still really passionate about that. But recently, as I told you earlier, I set up a business with my fiance that focused on healthy and happy living. And that also shifted my focus a little bit to family well-being. And basically, so it may not be one policy. It's likely to be a combination of a few. But I think, it's really about how do we tackle individual well-being, and how do we make sure that families are happy and secure at the same time. It could be, creating better access to childcare facilities or childcare support, creating the conditions that would allow people to spend more time with their children, their loved ones.
4-day work week, would that work?
Yeah, I really support that. I really support that, because the 5-day work week, 9 to 6 or 8 to 5, these are industrial age relics. They don't work so well now, and if we keep sticking to them without understanding why they existed in the first place, and if we can actually change the conditions within which we work and live, I think we would be a much happier society. And I think the pandemic was really good because it provided an impetus for that. Before lockdowns and COVID, we were just trudging along, right? But COVID and lockdowns and the changes that we had to make showed us that we can telecommute on a regular basis. We can work from home and still be productive. In fact, it has, reduced the need for paying high rents, offices and all that. It has, and there are problems. There are little issues here with working from home and the blurring of professional and private time. But those are issues that we can work out. As long as we know that we're moving away from systems and frameworks and structures that don't serve us as a society, and we start to recalibrate, I think that's a good thing. So, I think between my workforce wellness and family well-being areas of interest, I think the underpinning principle would be finding ways to shift our focus from economic or financial struggle to personal fulfillment and family happiness and stability.
So what does success look like in your vision of Singapore, in this new vision of Singapore?
I think at the very least, or at least at the surface, it would look like not having to struggle every day to make ends meet. And that is a huge issue for a lot of people. And you can be earning like 8K or 10K, whatever it is, and you're still living hand to mouth because what goes into your bank goes out as expenditures. It could be your kids' education, could be your mortgage or whatever it is, and it's really difficult for people to. It's difficult for people to thrive as a person, as a whole person, when you're so fixated on just trying to stay afloat financially. Yeah, I think that's something we really need to address. And that sort of mentality that for example, if parents are struggling financially, and obviously they want their children to be financially secure, but the way some parents look at it is you've got to study hard, you've got to get into a good university, get a good job. But that also doesn't take into account the child's needs and the child's own passions. And it's very detrimental all the way, from parent to child and from family to society, that kind of mentality that's all about this one idea of success, which is based on economic, growth.
Right. So I generally agree with you, but maybe some nuances, right? And I'm fully aware that whatever I'm gonna say next may result in me getting cancelled. So what if the pendulum swings the other way, right? And then we do not have incentives for people to succeed, right? And I know it hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet, but maybe there are signs, right? So I'll give you an example. Right? I don't know what you feel about this, but when I went for my son's sports day, right, when he was in K1 or nursery 2, and everybody got a gold medal. And I had a huge problem with that, because I feel like that is something that needs to be earned, right? And what is the message that we are sending also, because you don't have to try and you're gonna get a gold medal, and then people say, oh yeah, we want to encourage participation. Yeah, I know, but also shouldn't we also teach our students how to deal with failure from and sports is about winning and losing, and there's a lesson in winning, there's a bigger lesson in losing also. I feel that sometimes the way we compensate for the problem that you rightly pointed out is to shield them from problems and failure, which is overcompensating, don't you think?
Yeah, I do agree. But I think also looking at that scenario, the reason we're giving, or people are giving, like everyone a gold medal or like a medal of participation, is because there is a narrative that you should be good at everything. Ideally, right? Ideally, you should be good at math and English or languages, sports or whatever it is, music. And that's why, whatever the area, kids are getting, everyone's getting a gold medal because, oh no, if you're not doing this, then yikes, you're not going to be able to deal. So while I agree with you, it's really important to teach everyone, especially kids, the value of learning from failure, and that, but it's also important to use that as an example to say you're not always going to get a gold medal for sure, because it
Right.
should be basically it. But you don't need to be good at everything.
Right.
So if you're not good at sports, that's fine. Find some area that you're good at,
Right.
and you will probably get a medal there. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's an excellent answer. Thank you for that. So yeah, I mean, I do feel that one of the areas that have been, I know it's been talked about in the past 6 months, and I think the pandemic accelerated this as well. But mental health is a huge problem. I remember when I was amongst my friends, some of my friends, and I was very reluctant to support lockdowns, even though I understand that the need for that. And the reason is because the effects of lockdowns are different for people of different socioeconomic classes. And the
Yeah.
lower income people who are living in smaller homes, big families, they suffer disproportionately from lockdowns. Especially if there are no outlets. If you cannot eat out, you cannot go down. The street soccer is closed at my house. The basketball courts are closed. I mean, and that's a recipe for disaster, I think. And I remember and I was saying that I cannot imagine the mental health of these people, and some people who are obviously in more privileged positions were saying that physical health is not as important as mental health. And I get flawed by such comments, right? So I definitely agree with you. The problem is huge, that because we define success in a particular. Although to be fair to MOE and the PAP, they have started to rectify this. In fact, I would say they have gone further than the population has. Right, the population is still probably stuck in 1990s when it comes to this version of success, whereas the PAP is trying to move away from it. Although then the initial creators of this were they were the initial creators of this, but they have tried to change it. Do you think that way as well? Do you think the PAP is moving the right direction on this?
I mean, I think they would be extremely obtuse if they didn't see the issues and didn't come up with the solutions they
So
had.
they had no choice, basically, right?
I think if they had common sense, which I really hope they do, they would know that these issues are important and urgent, and that they would need to address them. So, but I mean, credit going to them. They are trying now,
Yeah.
and they're trying to put certain frameworks in place and trying to promote certain policies. So I think that's a good start. But you're right also. It will take time to trickle down into society, and it will also be contingent on whether or not you see the leadership acting in accordance to what they to the policies they put out. Right? Are you setting a genuine example?
Right. Absolutely.
And I think that is going to send the message.
Absolutely, yeah. So you made one point just now where that is quite absent in the discussions on mental health, which is you linked the economics part to it. And it seems like part of the solution to these mental health problems would be to get the economic policies right as well. And do you, or am I reading too much into what you said, or is that what you're saying when you were saying when people, if they are living hand to mouth, right, then it's difficult for them to actually have some mental wellness?
Yeah. I think we do need to look at our economic policies. I'm by no means an expert, but I do see a very strong link between the economic landscape and how that trickles down to the individual. And for example, our fixation on growth for growth's sake, and our fixation on profits, right? Especially over people. And you look at that in the corporate realm, where companies are increasingly hiring more contract staff versus putting people in headcount. And that's because one of the reasons is it's cheaper, right? Because you don't have to offer the same benefits, and also because it looks better when it comes to a profit per employee kind of a breakdown in the annual report. Yeah, and when you are on contract and not on headcount, there's a certain insecurity that you feel.
For sure.
And if anyone has been on contract, they know that you feel a lot more dispensable you feel like you're not getting the same benefits. So there's a measure of feeling a certain kind of injustice as a person, and also the fact that you're well aware that that it's going to be much easier to let go. And so when you're in that position, you tend to push yourself harder, or you're more afraid of losing your job. So, you stay extra hours, you try
Right.
your best to, like compensate so that you won't be as, dispensable as you feel. And that creates a lot of stress on the individual.
Right. Right.
So I think that's like one example of how like
Yeah.
economic policies can affect corporate culture and how that affects the individual as well.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That was really clear. So, final substantive question, right? So, you are. I assume you will be running in Holland Bukit Timah if all goes to plan. I know we cannot predict the future, but you have intentions to run in Holland Bukit Timah in 2025 or 2024?
I'll go wherever I'm placed, but if it's Holland Bukit Timah, and actually any other constituency, I hope that like SDP's presence will act as a conduit to nurturing and cultivating a community that is connected and can support and help each other within the constituency and even beyond, in a way that would thrive even if we weren't there. So, but we hope to, I think I personally want to build up a community of people within the constituency that are connected to each other.
So your pitch is what? Vote for us because we are more compassionate, or what is your pitch?
I think my pitch is, okay, so first of all, I think generally you wouldn't have a political system if not for opposition, right? And opposition parties, opposition figureheads, or whatever, opposition candidates and members, supporters provide more perspectives than, more perspectives than, just one party can stand for or pro-offer. And so I think it's really important to celebrate the diversity of views and positions in the socio-political space. But I think if you were to ask why vote for SDP, I think it would be, we've always run on the idea of the principle of compassion. And compassion is, if you look at what's happening in society now, it's something that we sorely lack. And not because we don't have it and we're not willing to give it and share it, but because a lot of us are just struggling. And when you're struggling, you're focused on surviving and you're not focused on giving. And
But
that's nobody's fault.
do you really think that is why Singaporeans are less compassionate? Because your answer right is similar to what okay, it's not similar, but that it has similarities, I would say, with what Professor Tommy Koh said, right? Singapore is a first world country, but third world. Actually, it's not. It's the opposite of what you are saying. You are saying that because people are struggling, therefore they are less compassionate.
It's harder to be but it's harder to give when you're struggling.
But that's not true of many other countries, right? You see many poor people. They are the most hospitable. They will open their doors to you, and in the most rural of areas where they are living hand to mouth. So is it really related to economics? This idea of compassion?
I think it could also be their idea of what is success. And if their idea of success is a thriving community where everyone helps each other, then economics doesn't matter so much.
Right.
But if we're still focused on the fact that economics, finances are the way to go, then yeah.
Right. Okay. Thanks. Fair enough. I think I buy that. It's a good explanation. Okay. So final question. I always end off like this. So, who is your favorite PAP MP other than Taman? Other than Taman and Louis Ng, and please don't go as far back as Dr. Chee did. He said Lim Chin Siong.
You just took two of my choices out of my mouth. Gee, I really. That's hard because I haven't thought beyond those two actually.
Those two are everybody's favorite, right?
Yeah. Oh dear. um, I really don't know. At this point, I think it would be any PAP that, or that stands for issues or principles that it's easy to get behind. And I know that's a really wishy-washy answer,
And
but I
that
haven't
person
thought of it
is,
yet.
come on, out of 80 plus, surely there's someone who's.
Can I choose an opposition member?
Okay, sure. Okay, opposition then. Yeah. Who's your favorite non-SDP member? Other than Pritam. Other than
Mm,
Pritam.
okay. Um, I okay. My other than Pritam. I think someone who I don't always agree with, but I do feel has a lot of chutzpah, is probably Charles Yu. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. Like I said, we don't have to agree on
Sure,
everything,
sure. Yeah.
but for some, but he doesn't. He has courage and conviction, right? And I think that's one step forward. So
Wow, okay. I totally didn't see that coming. This was just like Dr. Chee when he said Lim Chin Siong. It wasn't even on my radar. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything that you wanted? Anything else that you wanted to say, Min? We've just crossed the 1 hour mark. So
mm,
yeah, is there any final thoughts that you wanted to say?
no, I'm just really massively honored to be here, to hear from you as well, and to learn from the questions that were posed. And I just hope that no matter where we stand, whether it's in the opposition camp or PAP, or whether it's whichever advocacy organization, whatever you believe in, I think one way we can help this nation progress is we have conversations with the aim of understanding each other. Um, and it's not about painting lines of division. It's really about just coming together because we have a common goal, which is we want the best for this country. And we really need to have open, honest discussion in a way that is not based on, just protecting your ego. It's really about, coming together in a way that it's compassionate and productive.
Okay. So on that positive and conciliatory note, thank you so much, Min, for agreeing to do this. The honor was completely mine. I think it was a
No, thank you for having me.
fascinating conversation. And thank you everybody for tuning in. I guess when things get better, we'll meet at Orange and Till.
Yes. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, yeah. Okay, let's do that. Thank you. Good night and good day, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.